Yo, what's going on, guys? Before this video starts, we want to remind you, if you don't feel like sitting through an entire video of seeing our beautiful faces, go over to iTunes or go to our website and download the audio file. It's a little bit easier just to listen to us than to see all that.
It's true. I mean, I would never rob you of this. Ever. I wouldn't even do it to myself. But really, we are rebuilding the website with a lot of old articles, so if you're new to us, go there, check it out. You can see a lot of what we worked on in the past.
Yeah.
Shitload of beer reviews.
Other than that, enjoy the video, guys.
See you then.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and welcome to another episode of the Power Hour.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This week we're going to be doing something different as far as the beer goes. Actually, Brian's idea. Why don't you talk about it?
Well, I mean, most ideas are mine.
Yeah.
So, we always generally will just pick up whatever beer we have. And when Jim and I started this site, it was all about us trying new beers every week while we play games. We still do that, but we figure for the Power Hour and for the sake of sharing information with you guys, each of us will bring 2 beers to the podcast of the same kind, so we're each trying 2 different beers. This week, I decided to bring the Oatmeal Raisin Cookie Brown Ale from Cigar City Brewing. Now, this is one of the most famous breweries from Cigar City, and if I can do a little bit here, the addition of raisins, cinnamon, and milk sugar to our full-bodied and chocolatey brown ale base creates a unique beer that tastes exactly like it was pulled out of Grandma's oven. Beat that, Jim.
I mean, that was all right. I mean, it was good. It was good. Let the master do his thing, though. And I decided to bring, which I already opened like a dum-dum, but one of our favorite breweries, Lagunitas, and it's the Sumpin Easy Ale. Comes in at a decent 5.7% alcohol by volume. And here we go. Beneath the flotsam of categories, past nouns, beyond exclamations, down to the autological, word processing the very property they express. Short is short. Sesquipedalian?
God damn it, Jim.
You try and say this word. Sesquipedalian is long. Something has that thing on the tip of your tongue, and easy just rolls off as easy as Sunday morning. Something easy is everything we've learned about making hop-forward beer expressed in a moderate voice. Pale, cold, slightly alcoholic, and bitter. It's all we know. Call us sometime. 707-769-4495.
I hate them. Yeah, so I've had a lot of the... How'd you say it?
I said Lagunitas.
And I always say Lagunitas.
Whatever it is.
I'm not sure. I'm sure someone will correct us, and there is a correct way, clearly. I've had many of their beers. Gotta say, never had this one. I will say I just tried this yesterday, and I don't want to give any impressions, but I want to see Jim's. I want to see how Jim thinks of it.
I have a feeling we should have drunk that first.
Nah, I think it's a better dessert. You know, it's like a cookie.
All right, we'll see.
I mean, unless you're one of those weird kids that eats a dessert before dinner.
Maybe. What if dinner is dessert?
What if you have cookies on your sketties?
God, maybe I should try that.
So,
looking at it, it's fairly translucent beer, decent amount of carbonation.
Yep.
Head goes away pretty quick.
It's a nice piss yellow.
Yeah, not a lot of lacing either.
It actually reminds me of like the yellow Gatorade, almost to a degree.
A little bit, yeah. It's got like a slightly citrusy kind of smell.
Yeah, ton of foamy head, but either way, as we go through, as we finish the beer, we'll give a quick recap, but this will force us to at least do 2 different beers every podcast.
Yeah, back when we first started, like Bryce said, we would actually go to this beer store by us and just grab something random every week.
Yep.
Got a little expensive.
Yeah, so, and we would do a 6-pack every time and finish it while playing a game.
Yeah.
This is easier. We just grab 2 bottles each, so. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump into it.
The good stuff.
Last podcast, I mentioned that we would be running these weekly brackets. And first of all, thank you guys so much because we've got a hell of a lot more voters and votes for these things than I think we were expecting. Especially
way more.
Yeah, considering these first 2, we didn't do it with a lot of build-up. We didn't ask a lot of people. We just kind of did it, set it for a week, and thank you all. So with that being said, I mentioned at the last podcast the first 2 brackets we would do was the best consoles and the best beer style. Now, I will say...
Right, didn't include any of the microcomputers from the UK. Right, why wasn't the ZX Spectrum on there?
think you know that answer, Jim.
Because we did stuff people care about.
Ha! Because we did stuff that went. Damn it! Stop hating on our English brethren.
Never, even though they're most of our viewer base.
Yeah. Interesting results with these votings, and what we will say is if you did miss out on those first two, we got 2 more coming, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to give you guys the results. So, Jim, we'll start with the best gaming console, and I think a few videos ago,
What a surprise!
I was the Nostradamus of this group.
What a surprise!
Some would call me daddy of this group.
I'm not calling you daddy.
But I called it, and it's not like a huge shocker. Super NES won. I wouldn't say it was a landslide, but they won pretty healthily over most. Coming in second, we had the PS2, and third, the NES. Now, we'll go through a few more, but, I mean, just with those 3 right off the bat, were you shocked at that result, Jim?
Not really. I kind of figured it was going to be either that or the PS2.
What was your pick for the final, Jim?
Mine was the Sega Genesis, Brian.
Okay. Yeah, mine was the PS2, and it actually was PS2 and Super NES that came down to the wire. So it was a tough go.
And I'll say, like, the PS2 probably really is the best console of all time. So, like, having that as number 2, I'm not pissed off to see.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Super Nintendo, I mean, it has so many all-timers on there that I get it.
It's fully understandable.
It's all the goddamn RPG dorks. That's who voted.
Well, so Jim
Babies. There's an opera scene in Final Fantasy VI. Oh, it's so beautiful.
So Jim,
I'm not butthurt.
Jim and I already talked about these results, but what I did say is what he just said, he said to me, the one argument I'll say is in most of the standard Nintendo first party exclusive, like Mario, Metroid, Legend of Zelda, it arguably has the best
of each of them. Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
Contra 3, Castlevania 4, Super Mario World.
Yeah, it's really tough.
Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Link to the Past. I mean, it's tough to argue that library.
So just
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, and that's one that killed it. It's arguably I prefer that as probably my best platformer on the Super NES. It's just me, but either way, none of that surprised us. What did kind of surprise me, so we'll just go through a top 10 because obviously 32 entries. But 4 was the Game Boy, 5 was the 3DS.
That surprised me. It was that high.
The only thing that I will say is the way I bracketed that was I didn't want to put handhelds against any of these regular consoles. I thought it would get blown out of the water, so I basically gave a whole region just to the handheld games, knowing that one of them would at least make it to the final 4. So I assumed it would be Game Boy or 3DS for that sake.
Maybe because the 3DS can also play all the DS games, then people more went for that. I don't know.
And then number 6 was a Genesis.
16 round 8 votes. That's the most we got.
Yeah.
Besides me putting number 1.
There was 190 votes total for the Sega Genesis.
Oh, yeah. So that's what they're highlighting on there.
So then number 7 was PS4, which...
That's a shock.
That shocked the shit out of me because I do love the PS4, and I've said it, even though I play a hell of a lot more on the Xbox One, the PS4 has better games, and it's an actual more true gaming console, if that makes any sense. Has more indie titles, has a lot better exclusives. So
it's a single player machine.
Yeah. So then number 8, the Atari 2600, which
fine by me.
Respectable, considering that had to get through the NES to get as far as it did. I was shocked how often that happened. Didn't happen all the way through, but enough. Number 9, the Game Boy Advance. It's a little shocking. It's that high in there. And number 10, the Nintendo Switch. Which,
people love their Switch.
Yeah, I basically attribute that to you got the system right now and you're playing Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey and you're loving the hell out of it. The rest of the series, the rest of the results are kind of what I would expect. Some little things that surprised me.
Xbox got beat up. Yeah,
I really wanted Xbox 360 to do better, but that was number 17.
I don't know if it's your bracket or what, but the fact that 360 is below the ColecoVision, and I love the ColecoVision, don't get me wrong.
No, that's insane. And it doesn't make the most sense, but I think the way the 360 was bracketed, it almost always came up against the PS2. So knowing the PS2 is number 2, you're going to get wiped out.
Yeah, and an N64 at number 18. That's pretty low.
So when I started sharing this bracket with people at work,
It barely beat the Intellivision. How the what? How did you make these brackets?
so no, it killed it because it had 116 votes to 52.
It just had 116 low votes, I guess.
No. It's spread all over. This is just generally the highest. If you are reading the results, I say don't read too much. Look at total votes. But yeah, the N64. Everyone I talked to at my work, and I said, hey, just so you know, I do these weekly brackets. I started a lot of them with beer, but I said if you had filled out the game one, which would you go for? 90% of them said the N64, which I was like, huh, maybe that'll be a good indicator. N64 will be higher.
Nah.
Sure wasn't. And the two most shocking for me is that the original PlayStation is number 13, and obviously I'm a PlayStation fanboy. I didn't think it would be that high. And Sega Saturn was 15.
I'm actually surprised PlayStation 1 wasn't higher.
Really?
Yeah. It's another RPG machine.
Yeah.
It started a lot of franchises.
So
At the bottom.
Now let's talk about, we'll just say the bottom three.
How the
Well, you know what, bottom four, because there's one entry in there that really chaps Jim's ass.
Fuck you, by the way, for this.
So the bottom of the bottom is the Atari Lynx, which got a total of 5 votes.
It's something no one had it.
And it was against the Game Boy. There was no way I had to put something against the Game Boy, and yeah, that just lost out bad. Then there was the Neo Geo, which lost out to the Super NES, which was the winner. So nobody had it. Way too expensive. We've covered it enough.
How the Odyssey go above the Neo Geo?
Yeah, somehow the Odyssey got 2 more votes than
First
the
Odyssey sucks.
but it was going against the Coleco. So it's at least understandable how...
Coleco's way better.
Oh,
than
I'm
the
sorry.
Odyssey.
No. Odyssey...
No, it didn't go
That's
against
even
Coleco.
more
Coleco went
interesting.
against Intellivision.
No. It was Intellivision and Coleco. It was Odyssey and
Atari, right?
Atari.
Yeah.
So it beat Atari. I don't know who would have done that.
Couple times.
I will say the only reason I threw Odyssey in there, in my thinking, was like the true first home consoles we know versus the one everybody know, like being the Atari. So, and then number 29, the TurboGrafx 16.
1, bullshit. 2, fuck you for putting it against the Genesis in the first round.
I did that strictly
3,
for Jim.
Eat my ass.
I was like,
rip my heart out of my chest right
I was
away.
like, the two of his favorite consoles. Let's see which one he really is going for.
Kills the turbo just to dick me over.
When you were going down the bracket and you got that one, did you just go,
I texted you right away. I texted you going, fuck you.
Yeah. You know what's sad? You know what beat that, Jim? What's right above that?
The Atari Jaguar.
Yeah. How many people you know played the Jaguar?
No one, Brian.
Enough to beat the goddamn TurboGrafx.
There's going to be some asterisks on that one.
So, thank you guys once again. In total, it looks like we had about 3,300 votes,
Shit.
which that's huge. We love that.
That's huge for us.
Thank you all. But now we're going to move on to the results of the best beer style. And this is another one.
Not as popular of a vote.
Yeah.
Just under 800 votes.
Yeah, and this is one where I didn't think. I mean, our following is
Mostly gaming.
much heavier gaming.
Twitter in general, really.
Yeah, but I will say the result didn't shock me for what came in number 1.
Yeah.
But before we get to results, Jim, what did you pick as your favorite?
I picked sours.
Okay. And I went with stouts. So with that, the winner was the IPA.
Shocker.
That is obviously the most, like, I don't even, it's like the popular kill on the block. If you talk about beer, and especially craft beer, everyone just talks IPAs. What kind of IPA you have? Did you try this IPA? A lot of them, there are some absolutely delicious ones out there, especially double IPAs.
And like every brewery has an IPA.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's the easiest to brew at this point, but it's the most ubiquitous, basically.
It's like, yeah, it's essentially the craft beer version of a light lager. It's like that's the version of their beer that every brewery has.
It's a craft beer version of Pepsi.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, so that one, and stouts was number 2. That broke my heart. I didn't expect stouts to get that far.
So close.
I obviously talk about how much I love stouts all the time, and especially doing this in summer. the number of people that I sent this bracket to and said, if you sent this to me in winter or fall when I was drinking stouts, I would have picked it. A lot of those guys were on the wire and went with IPAs. We'll just kind of cover the top 6, we'll say. The number 3, which was Pilsners and Pale Lagers, that shocked the shit out of me because we figure everyone filling this out is going to be more into craft beer. And I don't know anyone who truly loves craft beer that loves Pale Lagers or Pilsners, because that's basically your Coors, your this, your that. It's all your standard, major beer companies, which we like. Just didn't think it would get far in this.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show that the big three are the big three for a reason.
Yeah. Then we have porters, which, once again, I didn't think it would get that far, especially it started off against stouts. So, yeah.
That's what killed you.
Yeah. And then Jim's Wild Sour beers. Sours,
I'll take top 5.
Yeah, sour's another style that's been gaining a lot of popularity. A lot more brewers are trying it now. The market before was basically just lambics and some other kind of just the Guez style. Now it's like American Wilds are just going crazy from every brewery. I like that style. It's just some of them can be a little too tart, a little too out there for me.
I like the tart.
Yeah, we know you do. And then I'll just mention that wheat beers came in number 6. And I only wanted to bring it to 6 because when I started this, for a solid day, wheat beers were winning. And ironically enough, everyone I told that to was like, man, you just must have had a lot of female voters. And these are guys that aren't exactly super hardcore into craft beer, so I didn't even get it because I'm like,
I like wheat beer.
I love wheat beers, and a lot of them I think of as wit beers and like the more German and Belgian styles.
Yeah.
I think I was shocked they didn't.
Maybe they all think it's Leinenkugel.
That's my guess, or Blue Moon. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then
the bottom.
The bottom 3 we'll say are Box.
That's a shame.
Which Box never get enough love. The easiest way for me to describe for people who don't drink a lot of beer, that's basically the porter version of a lager. It's a dark ale it's
a nice in between.
Fairly drinkable, but yeah, it doesn't get a lot of love. Scottish style ales were number 15, which that went against IPAs, so of course it was going to get killed. Then number 14, fruit and vegetable beers, which, I think that's fair. Some people just don't like it or don't understand that any beer really brewed with any form of vegetable or fruit is a fruit or vegetable beer. So
no, bro, you're not a goddamn man unless it tastes like a hop took a shit in your mouth. That's what real beer is, goddammit.
Yeah.
God forbid there's flavor. God forbid.
So, once again, thank you guys who did vote on this.
Right, your precious pumpkin beer. You didn't mention that being one above.
Yeah, I actually expected that to be the last because people seem to love to hate pumpkin beers. I don't get it. Jim and I have said many times, like, why do you hate flavor? But whatever. The fact that it was 13, there was enough people I heard voting that they do like it, but that had some of the toughest matchups in the bracket, I'll say, because it went against stouts and apparently pilsners and pale lagers very early.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Those ones were winners, so yeah.
Surprised cream was like in the middle.
Yeah, cream, there's not, at least even from PA breweries.
I haven't even had that many cream ales in general.
I've had maybe 12, if that different. It's just not a style that you try that much, so for that to be that high, these brackets are interesting.
Yeah.
So, thank you guys, but now we're going to reveal what the next 2 brackets are, and we're going to do a little spin on it as far as choosing who we think's going to win. Mm-hmm. All right, so because we alternate, this past week was beer, this coming week, Monday through Sunday, will be video game 1, and it's the best fighting game franchise. Now, compiling this list was tough because I wanted to make sure every game in this list had at least 2 games in the series. There's a lot of one-offs that are really good, but that's why I tried to stick with the franchise. So you will see some obscure titles to fill out the 32 entry bracket, but all the classics are there. And I'll just say right off the bat, you might not see how the things are seeded, but obviously the top seeds are Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, What'd I say? Tekken and Smash Brothers.
It was either Smash or the Versus series.
Or yeah, either Smash or Marvel versus Capcom. Either way, those are obviously going to be your top seeds. So we love to see how you vote. And now, going with what we said, Jim and I want to each take a guess at who we think's going to win. Not who we think's the best, because that's left to our voting, but who do we think's going to win. And if one of us gets it right and the other one gets it wrong, then you just have to chug a shitty beer. We're bringing back the loser brew.
Yeah, for those of us who are new to the page, we used to do some more in-depth, complicated drinking beer videos, or drinking games, I should say.
Yeah.
And actually, you can see them farther down on our page. It's been a while because they take a lot of work and no one really watched them, so...
And Jim was tired of losing. Still champ.
Anyway, so the loser would have to drink a loser brew, which is normally some god-awful concoction. So we're bringing it back. Coming full circle with this shit, so...
Jim, do I have to get more banana beers and jalapeno beers?
Yeah, that was a great one. They got, like, thick and, like, chunky.
Yeah. So, I'll let you choose first.
I'm going to go with the obvious and say Street Fighter.
Yeah, my heart wants to say Mortal Kombat, but I guess we can't both pick the same, so I'll just say Mortal Kombat.
Surprised you didn't go like Marvel Versus or anything.
I will say I think Street Fighter is going to win, but like you said, we're not going to pick the same. So
people fuck me. I know people love to fuck me here.
No, I know there are obviously tons of people who love Mortal Kombat series just as much as me. I just think there's a lot more that like Street Fighter, or even if you don't know about fighting games, people regard that as their favorite. So
yeah.
So then the following week, that one will be the best PA brewery, and once again, it's 32 entries. For those of you who aren't in the PA area, there's going to be a lot you don't know. So if you
just make it up.
Just make it up. Or maybe that's a good experience that if you can find any of the breweries locally, trust us that...
Actually, bring the bracket with you. If you bring it up on your phone, go to a local beer store around you and see which ones are there. Give them a shot.
Well, we had to slim this down because there's
a shitload.
There's over 100 breweries easily, if you count all the micro ones, but we got down to 32. And... for that one, no point as much going into the seeding, but I guess I'm going to say I think Yards is going to win it.
All right, I'll go with Yingling.
It's understandable. Interestingly enough...
If you said Yingling, I was going to go Yards.
Yeah, those two are one of the highest seeded. Yards is probably...
Victory's up there, too.
Victory, Weyerbacher, there's a lot that are good, and for those are diehard craft beer fans, I know Tired Hands is going to go really far now.
Tired Hands is good.
But Yingling is known pretty far out there, and it's the oldest brewery in America, so I feel like that should be an easy shoe-in. I just know in the Philly region, Yards that's like our Sam Adams, essentially.
Basically.
So, yeah. So get out there, get voting. You can just go to our website. We'll put links everywhere you follow us. You'll see us blasting it out there. So vote, and thank you guys who continue to vote and watch us with us.
Yeah, these are fun. It's nice to see what you guys think about this.
Yeah, and if you ever have any suggestions for brackets you'd like to see, send it to us. But keep in mind, we already have a list of ones we're going to be doing. But if we can squeeze yours in the meantime, we appreciate it.
And if you have an area that you're like, you need to try these beers, we'd love to try some more. So send us some suggestions. Maybe we'll do the thing where we go through a beer store and try to find what we can.
Yeah. All right, Jim. So now we're going to move on to our first beer topic.
Yeah, it's the only beer story this week. It's not as fun as Attempted Murder like last time. But, well, I guess 2 times ago because you did your solo. So, And you actually did pretty good on that solo one for trying to bullshit on your own.
I don't like just bantering by myself. All right, so this one I haven't, or actually you have in front of you, so you can go ahead and read it.
Yeah, apparently there's a big CO2 shortage in the UK right now, and it's affecting food and drink stuff everywhere. So it's going into how, like, in food processing, and especially, like, you need slaughterhouses will use CO2 to stun pigs before they slaughter them. So they can't do that. It's shutting down production. A lot of wholesale distributors are removing beer sales and certain kind of food because they just don't have the shipments to do what they need to do. So I really included it just as it's affecting the beer industry in general over there because you're not going to get your carbonation without CO2. So it's kind of an interesting read. It sucks for them over there, really, but it's something I had no idea about until I saw this article, too. And for our UK followers, if you noticed anything weird with either food or drink shortages, crap like that, let us know.
Yeah, it seems like one of the biggest issues is the fact that beer is not going to be a top priority, especially it seems like for these pig producers to keep, as Jim said, keep the most humane way to continue slaughtering them. I don't know how else to put that. But what's interesting is in this article, they mention that they're capping customers to 10 cases of beer and 5 of cider or soft drinks. But they're referring to their customers as bars, restaurants, and traders. So I don't know if that really is the case. That's a goddamn big shortage. If a restaurant can only have 10 cases of beer,
that's nothing.
Yeah, that goes through in half a night. So I hope that gets fixed. That really sucks. Maybe just a lot of microbrew places will be just brewing on spot and giving out bottles and not bottling them and having to condition them. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I
mean, this is even hitting like Coca-Cola and shit like that.
Yeah,
like huge companies.
Yeah, Heineken and Coke were the two of the bigger ones hit, and I'm sure with their funding, they're gonna bump themselves up the list to make sure they are the first ones at the line to get what they need. So any microbrews or breweries out there that aren't that big, I think you're going to suffer the most. So hopefully
they are probably hurting.
Hopefully you guys don't go under and stick around. And hate to hear any beer drinkers are suffering over there. So we'll drink for you guys.
Yep. To all our fallen brethren at the CO2 shortage of 2018.
So yeah, that sucks.
That's really the most we have to say about this one, but it's more of an interesting read than it is to talk about.
Yeah, so click on the link if you're interested. It's down below. Next one is another. This is Jim. He threw this up here, and I'm very curious.
Yeah, I just want to address a lot of the comments we got in our Metroid review, and I think one of the biggest things that...
Wait, do we get corrected a lot in our reviews, Jim?
No, that never happens. But where I will say that they're probably right in a lot of ways is... They're like, you guys didn't mention enough about how annoying it is to go through it without, a guide or shit like that. So we're under a time crunch with these things. So I used a walkthrough. I used save states. I played it off my Retron to get a better footage. So I wasn't inputting the crazy 20-some character passwords every time I died. I wasn't, trying to dig my way through the game. Like, I was using walkthroughs, and even that was hard enough. Yeah. So this really is a game that gives you, no hints. You really do have to bomb and shoot every single thing to try and find all the secret passages. And it's just so easy to get lost. So maybe I gave the overall gameplay score maybe a little bit too high because it is really fun, but the frustration level in that can really bring it down for a lot of people too. It did for me when I first played it.
Yeah, but I would put it the same as Legend of Zelda. Like, that game, without some kind of guide or looking shit up in Nintendo Power, there are many areas you will not know. You have to do this. Some caves,
almost the thing for Zelda, we could have put it lower too, because that is a bullshitty game.
But to me, that was a symptom of the time. How many Nintendo games, and there are a lot of them, had that issue of basically you're not going to know how to get past it through this point. We're not necessarily always trying to review these games in the sense of when you first tried them out as a kid. We're saying, here's how they stand up now, and any gamer to this day is still going to play Metroid. The map's insane, you're going to need it, and the ease of looking it up. Once you get over that hurdle, the game is still fun. But yeah, absolutely, Jim's right. If you didn't, back then, when you first picked it up, that's not how we're trying to necessarily review them. Like, we'll compare games to games as far as graphics and sound, but gameplay and stuff, we're not the nerd.
Yeah.
He does the greatest job of that, showing the pure frustration of even great games, that reliving those memories. We cover every game from every generation, and like Jim said, putting aside the time crunch, we never script stuff. People have commented on our things mentioning that. We legit sit down while drinking beer,
just give our thoughts,
play the game. One of us or both of us will go through and beat an entire game. And basically, we'll just give our thoughts. And when we do these more popular games, we're like, okay, well, we don't need to dig too deep into the... Sorry, camera went off. But either way, when we go through these really popular games like Super Mario 3 or Metroid, we're not going to dig too deep in even the history or talk about the plot of the game or things that everyone
Other
knows.
people do that better.
Yeah, we're giving you our true impressions of right now. If you play this game, is it still fun? What do we like? What do we don't like? We know we're not the most detailed reviewers, and that's kind of the style that we've adopted. So Jim is good at addressing these comments, but we make our statements kind of on the fly because that's our style.
At least the commenters aren't dicks about it.
Some.
Well, I mean, we randomly get a hater here or there,
Yeah.
but for the people who like legit watch and comment on it, they're
Oh yeah,
They're fine.
And you're definitely, and we don't claim to be experts on any of this. Even if we beat the game a million times, Jim has misspoken on games that he loves and doesn't shut the hell up about. And once again, I'm not going to sit there and fact check him. I'm just going to trust he's right, but he's wrong most of the time.
meh.
So yeah, if you do have comments, let us know. And I think, like I said, we always will try to do our best.
You done your first one?
Yeah,
Alright,
we'll
finish
always
this off.
try to do our best to reach out to you guys and get back to you. Before we move on to any more topics, we just finished up this Something Easy Ale, and
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
God damn it. Yeah, so for an American Pale Ale, it's fine. There's a little bit of citrus, a decent amount of hops, but it's like most American Pale Ales. Drinks easy, leaves a little bit of a bitter and a salivating taste in your mouth. Other than
With the
that,
tiniest little bit of like hints of lemon and shit, but
yeah.
yeah, it's nothing special. But if you want like a different kind of beer on like a summer day, hot summer day to just drink, that isn't Keystone. Always have to throw that in. But yeah, it isn't like say one of the more popular summer ales.
Well, a lot of people love the Miller. Was it Miller Chill or Bud?
Well, Miller Chill failed. Bud Light Lime.
Bud Lime and shit like that.
I do like me some lime.
Or even,
Even a Corona or shit like that.
yeah, any of your atypical major lagers. This is a good alternative.
Yeah, the summer wheats and shit. This is a nice one to drink on a summer day.
Yeah.
Nothing special, but you won't be disappointed by it.
So now we will move on to the dessert beer, as I call it. Now this one is a brown ale. So you would think it's going to be heavy because it's called Oatmeal Raisin Cookie, but brown ales are pretty renowned for being fairly decent session beers, especially over in England. This does come from Florida, and it is only 5.5%. So I always like to pour it to show you guys. When you get a brown ale like this, you're going to have an ass ton of head. And, that also...
Unless you pour it like a bitch like me.
Yeah. Well, I'll always pour this for the detail's sake. But either way, we're going to let that settle. And
Ooh.
it smells and tastes exactly like an oatmeal raisin cookie.
Ooh.
I don't like oatmeal raisin
I
cookies.
love oatmeal raisin cookies.
But I love oatmeal cookies, and if you can throw some chocolate chips in there, that's good. Just not a big raisin fan. Like, that's weird. But either way, it is damn delicious, at least in my opinion. So I'll let Jim, when he takes his sip, see what he thinks.
All right.
While we wait for that, which is better?
We're bringing that back.
We're getting a lot better at bringing back all the old bits and going to incorporate them in every Power Hour. So this one, it was another right to Jim's heart. I had to pick it. And
You actually. So say them first, and then I'll say what you did. You betcha.
all right, so which is better, Twisted Metal 2 or Mario Kart 64?
And actually, when he put Twisted Metal in there, he wrote in parentheses, "Pick your favorite."
Yeah. So
Dick.
I if I just did the series, it's kind
Mario
of
Kart.
unrenownedly going to be Mario Kart, but I wanted to aim this one more at Jim. He loves Twisted Metal 2, but Mario Kart 64 is a game he's the best at, arguably. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, that's one of my best games.
Yeah. So I know he takes a lot of pride in being good at Mario Kart 64, but Twisted Metal 2's up there. So I'm going to let you
One, this is hard to do because they're two completely different genres.
yeah. But
I mean, they're both vehicle combat, but one's about killing everything and one's racing.
Jim, haven't we been over this before with
I know.
with Portal and Skyrim? There are games. You got to pick one, Jim. It's not like listen, they're in the same stratosphere. They're not completely.
I'll give you stratosphere.
They're multiplayer games where you're most likely you're going to have the most fun by playing with a group of people, and winning is just as fun as in one as the other. It's just a little different, and you're being dicks to people in both games. So, which one is better, Jim? And remember this, just so you know, if you are watching this, I'm not suggesting which game is better, which one we actually like better and we prefer. That's what we mean.
Okay.
And you can't sit on the fence on this one.
I'm not sitting on no goddamn fence. The better game is Mario Kart 64. It's more polished. It's more overall better. The more fun game, I'll say, is Twisted Metal 2. Because it's just stupid, bedlam, crazy action, crazy characters, and it's like self-referential. It doesn't take itself seriously.
So what's your answer, Jim?
My answer is going to be goddamn Mario Kart 64, but I do love them both basically just as much. I can't go against like one of my all-time games. But Twisted Metal 2 is so goddamn good. And the only reason I'm going to go Twisted Metal or Mario Kart 64 too is like, if you were to say, Jim, what's your favorite Mario Kart? I'd always say 64. But if you said, Jim, what's your favorite Twisted Metal? Most of the time I'd say Twisted Metal 2, but Black's right under it. So I could easily flip-flop between them, where 64 is my go-to.
Well, that's
even though 8 Deluxe is the best one, but 64 will always be my favorite.
Well, because that's the only one you're good at.
I'm okay at 8 Deluxe, unless I play against a bunch of Japanese people.
Listen, Jim, that's just your best game, period. That you're best at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was going to go with Mario Kart 64, but, I mean, Jim pointed out something that is true, at least in my eyes. I have more fun playing Twisted Metal 2. I can much more easily get a group of people to play Mario Kart 64, but if I get people that want to sit down and play Twisted Metal 2, I have more fun. The amount of the power-ups and just the fact that you are eliminating someone, I don't know, there's something that feels just a little bit more satisfying when you are the winner in that game.
Right, is it the fact that you can take the Statue of Liberty's clothes off by missiles?
Sure, if you want to throw that in there.
I mean, that's up there.
Obviously,
blowing up glaciers.
I think Twisted Metal 2, those characters have more character. I know, I just said the same.
No, I know what you mean, though.
And each time you play as someone different in that game, it feels completely different, whereas Mario Kart's really speed and handling, for the most part.
Speed, handling, weight, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Twisted Metal 2. This time it's more to go against Jim, but also when I think about it, I just have more fun with that game. But Mario Kart 64 is a better game, not going to argue that. But I like Twisted Metal 2 better.
That's fair.
So I'm glad to hear you're not a Twisted Metal 2 fan.
Rip my heart from my chest. Just put the turbo against the Genesis. Just put these two together. It's always a game. Always a game to fuck.
So let us know what you think below, guys. Which one is your favorite, and not necessarily which you think is the best game. All right, Jim. So this next one is another you, and it's probably will be another reoccurring topic because the last time Jim was on with me, he brought up the goddamn NES game
that
console
lockout thing
that locked the whole system. So this time, what is it you're bringing up, Jim?
It's the... Hold on, I'm trying to find it real quick. Of course, it's right before I went on vacation, so it's buried. God damn it.
All right, while he's looking for it, I'll just lay the groundwork. I guess there was something about the NES.
It was called Game Sounds.
Okay.
And it's going to be tough because it's hard to find like an actual article of some kind about it, but we'll show a picture maybe on the screen as we do this. And basically what it is a wireless gaming headset peripheral for the NES. So what it is you plug it in, it like latches onto the side of the NES and plugs into the audio out port. And then I guess by just wireless transmittal, it goes to this pretty big dongle that you can clip to yourself and you plug your earphones into it.
So I'll be honest, I have never heard of this, but I have something.
Here we go. So yeah, it looks like this.
Okay. So yeah, we're going to put the picture up, but it's a headset for the NES. That is really interesting, and yeah, I found it on Amazon, which is currently unavailable.
Oh, well, there you go.
So somebody out there has this.
And I want to thank Kit for bringing this to our attention before, because he always posts random shit that he finds, and I don't know, like, he's obsessed with old retro gaming magazines, so he had an article about this, and I saw this and I went, what the hell is that?
I mean, come to think of it, and I don't want to dive too deep because this might be a topic coming up, but
Works up to 20 feet away, too,
I don't know.
which is kind of cool for the time.
When I think of gaming headsets, if you're not talking about PC, of course, Xbox 360 was the first one I did that with.
Yeah.
Like, I remember having a set for my PS2.
Oh, shit, it actually works as a FM radio, too.
Yeah. So
That's pretty cool.
It's just a really neat thing. And, yeah, that's one of those random, I can't even imagine how much they cost because they're probably rare as all hell. But, no, that's a very interesting thing.
They either cost a lot or nothing because no one knows what it is.
That's very true. I think it's a great idea that I'm shocked more systems back in the day didn't implement. Not saying there probably wasn't some random third-party people who didn't develop ones for the Genesis or Super NES, but that's just an easy idea to us now, but not enough did it back then. So,
Nothing
interesting
on eBay.
article. Thank you, Kit. We appreciate that as always, bud.
Yeah, we love these wacky stuff, but...
Yeah.
And if any of you have ever seen and or used it, let us know how it actually worked.
All right, so ties perfectly in with overrated, underrated. You went with gaming headsets.
Now, there's a ton of them out there. There's the ones that consoles will give you just to be able to talk to your buddies. And then there's ones that cost $1,000.
Nah, I'm going to go with the more mid-range that most people have, which will be...
The Turtle Beaches.
Turtle Beaches. Anything that you're going to spend probably in
100
the
to
range
200?
of... No, I would even say 50 to 150.
All right.
If you get more, yeah, obviously there's clear advantages. But, you know, I'm going to have to go underrated because what are some of the biggest complaints? I can remember being a kid. You know, your parents say, turn down that TV when you're playing a game, but you want to hear all the sounds of the system. And if I had been able to listen to friggin' Donkey Kong or Castlevania 4 when I was a kid with my headphones on, I would have been blasting my eardrums out because those soundtracks were so iconic. And at the time, you could only hear them on the system. Well, now, you know, when I play games, if I really want to get immersed, I'll put the headphones on. And for like things like horror games, it's so important to hear every little bit of ambient noise, and it enhances the game's atmosphere so goddamn much. If you play any type of tactical shooter, or even first person, third person, doesn't matter, if you're playing online, they're almost a prerequisite. If you don't have headsets, you can't hear the guy coming up behind you, and you can't hear where shots are coming from as clear. So they almost are required, which I don't love that aspect. But sound has always been that thing that everyone agrees, or, you know, most people will agree what's the best game from each system. And I'll tell you one common link between all of them. They have really iconic soundtracks that you can hum to yourself and you'd know as soon as you hear it. So anything that can enhance the sound, like a gaming headset, I'm always going to be all for.
Yeah, I'll probably go underrated as well. If we were talking about the high-end ones, like, I couldn't tell you what the difference between $1,000 and $2,000 headset is. I bet it's minimal at that point.
It's $1,000.
Thank you, Brian.
That's math.
It's one of my bits.
You don't know math.
Captain Dickhead. That's my fucking bit. But, yeah, I mean, I'm going to put it this way. Like, when my one buddy in work first, he talked me into buying my first set, which were the Turtle Beach X11s on the 360. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it was about $100, I want to say, maybe 50 to 100, somewhere in there. I was like, what? How big of a difference is it really going to make? And when I first used them, it was almost disorienting. Just how much stuff you could hear, and just hear the full range of motion. Like, it really was a stereo surround system in your head. So, I guess it depends on the type of game, but even alone, just to be able to play your games without having to have anyone listen to it, or to make your whole house go boom, really. Yeah, I think they're worth their money.
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
I'm going to go underrated. Like, I almost never play my Xbox One without my headset.
Yeah, once you start playing with them, and I go back to...
You almost never stop.
Yeah, I go back to my obsession with the horror game. I can't say I ever want to play them without them. I feel bad for anyone who's still holding out for any reason, especially on the newer consoles. And this is why I just said I wish the old systems had this. Now that, you can emulate some of your old games, man, listening to some of those classic soundtracks coming through those headphones, whoo, they make the games even better for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely underrated. So let us know below what you guys think. Other than price, I don't know any reason why they would be considered overrated.
Yeah, maybe you can go brand to brand and say maybe a brand's overrated. Like, I know a lot of people don't like Turtle Beach. For me, they're fine, but I'm not a pro gamer anyway, so...
I'll use whatever the hell I can that makes it sound better.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the bass isn't deep enough and the
equalizer on the treble, blah, 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 blah.
All right, so sticking with bits. God damn it! Now you got me talking like you. I don't want to be an asshole. But,
it's a hard life. It's not easy.
But sticking with topics we like to keep bringing up, we brought up the game genres that define the Atari 2600. So I wanted to keep doing this through all the major consoles. This time we're talking about the NES. For me, it's very simple. When I think NES and major genres, you're just going to me platform, and I guess I would say, I almost want to say beat 'em up. Nah, not really beat 'em. It's tough because side-scrolling shooter or something to that effect. Like platformer is without doubt the obvious one, but yeah. Probably side-scrolling shooter. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I mean, well, platformer is the obvious because it has other genres. Every genre is almost mixed into platforming with these games, too. Like, Mario's a straight-up platformer, where Contra is a run-and-gun with platforming. And you have Castlevania, which is an action game with platforming. And you have... Everything's almost a platformer in some form or another.
Yeah.
I'll probably go... Maybe I'll go RPGs. Because it's known for having some RPGs on it. It's got Final Fantasy. It's got the first couple Dragon Warriors.
It's got a couple, and they're well known. But when I think NES, if I think of a system with RPGs, I'm going PlayStation or Super NES.
Or Super NES, yeah. Shit. I mean, it's hard to say anything but platformer for the NES.
That's the dominant. That's why I'm trying to think what would be the secondary. And before anyone corrects us, we know it covers almost every genre, but this is strictly the major, every system has those major, that's the type of genre it defines it. So platformer's an easy one. Because, action is another one that's too bland to say.
Yeah, beat 'em ups doesn't even have that many.
No,
that was still
when I said
genre.
that, that's why I was but shoot 'em ups, I feel like there are.
There's a good amount of shooters on there.
Yeah, I'd probably stick with that for those two. Because RPGs, like I said, there are very well-known ones, but there's not a ton. Sports, obviously, there are sports games, but at that point, it's what you would expect.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, I mean, it's platformers. There's no going against that.
Yeah. So, very quick, but it's a subject that I think as we get to later systems...
Might be a little tougher.
It'll be a little tougher to really nail down. So, this one.
Did you read through this?
Yeah, but I'll let you kind of hit it off since I talked the last time the most. So why don't you tell us what you're sharing, and the link's right below.
All right, so this is coming from The Guardian, and it's an article called, let me see the title, called I Punched Him So Hard He Cried, Inside the Street Fighter Movie. So, 90s kids like us growing up, you remember the Street Fighter movie. A lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it for what it is. Personally, I love it. I have too much nostalgia for that goofy-ass movie. It's a train wreck, but...
It's a great junk movie. It's entertaining as all hell just because of how terrible it is.
Yeah. So, I was surprised. It had a budget of $30 million, which in this day and age doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess that was pretty decent for back then.
Yeah.
And they wound up blowing, almost most of it entirely on Jean-Claude Van Damme. And then the rest, they just had to fill out as they could. So, it just goes through all the different stories about issues from the casting, issues from Nintendo itself, Van Damme was a mess of a person during this filming. Yeah. He was the highest paid action hero in the world, and he would just have days where he wouldn't show up, or he wouldn't feel like it, or he was coked out of his mind. He was having an affair with Kylie Minogue during the shoot of it. Good for him. Shit. How Nintendo wanted to have some Japanese action star who didn't speak English to play Ryu. So what the director did was, and he had a lot of credit behind him. It's D'Souza, I think, was the director.
Yep.
So like he was behind Die Hard and like Knight Rider and shit like that. Like he had a lot of credit to his name. So he wanted to have actors who either could have training for combat scenes, but they started filming scenes before they had the training, so the combat looked like crap. And Raul Julia was dying during the course of it, so
stomach cancer,
they had to do his roles towards the end because they wanted him to gain some weight before he did his parts. And the whole thing was just such a mess. And I mean, it turned into it's a fun movie to watch, but it's just the kind of thing where you just go down this list of just everything that went wrong, and it's amazing it came out in general.
Yeah. It's almost an Ed Wood.
Like they had when Ryu and Vega had their fight, and he was using like a sword or something like that. Like it was before they had any training. So, and they gave him a real sword. So he's like trying to slash away at him. He could have hurt each other real bad. And there was apparently like a ton of backstory that like just got cut straight out from the movie for budgetary and time concerns. Like Blanca and Dazlim, all of that. Like they were just in the movie, and you're like, oh, okay, they're there.
Yeah.
And like apparently it was supposed to be really spelled out, but they never got around to it. And apparently D'Souza wanted to only focus on like 7 characters because in movie making that's like the magical number. And then Capcom's like, no, you have to have every character.
Yeah. Yeah. So to Jim's point, this is a really big article, but if you have any interest in that movie, you got to read this because it's fascinating. As he said, for a movie to come out with all the shit, and you can't appreciate everything that goes into making a movie. It's insane, but I will say it's very interesting article. A lot of it's probably known, but
explains a lot.
You should read through it because then you might even gain a better I realize every time I see a documentary about a movie or read about a movie, it makes me appreciate it more, and I'll go back and watch it and like be like, oh yeah, it's cool knowing this little tidbit about it.
Right.
Yeah. So cool. Very interesting article. And where did you say you got this from?
From The Guardian.
How'd you find it?
Twitter.
Thank you.
Brad, you don't think I just go around reading The Guardian all the time?
No, Jim, I do not.
You'd be right.
So before we get to a topic that you brought up, there's one thing I did want to address, and we did it for the Atari, but now that we're done with the top NES games, according to our aggregate,
yep.
What were your overall thoughts for the 4 titles? And for those of you, if you haven't seen them all, it was Super Mario 3, Metroid, Legend of Zelda, and Castlevania 3. Before you ask why weren't some games on it, we've probably reviewed it, like Mega Man 2, a ton of
first Castlevania,
Super Tecmo Bowl, like literally we've reviewed a lot of NES games. So this list it was aggregates of all the top 10 NES games that we've ever seen. So what were your general thoughts about those 4 games?
Can't really argue any of them.
Yeah.
I think the weakest of them in general, and probably for a lot of what we said, would probably be the original Metroid. Yeah. It's probably the most flawed out of all of them. Even though Castlevania is bullshitty hard.
No, Castlevania is by far the hardest of those games.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through and think. Trying to remember, and don't do a direct comparison, but which one had the best, your favorite presentation, the graphics and sound?
Probably Castlevania 3.
Yeah, that's where mine is. I think of that soundtrack, and even though Super Mario 3 had great sound, like music,
I don't think the soundtrack is iconic, but it's still really good enough that, along with the graphics, like
for sure. Which one had your favorite control? You know, we might as well tie
Zelda because it's the easiest.
I was going to say tie control in with gameplay. So right. Which one had the best control and gameplay aspect of it?
Probably Mario 3.
Yeah, I mean, the Castlevania, that goddamn mechanic of being knocked back. I've beaten every Castlevania on the NES, and I still, to this day, don't get why they needed to do that. And I said...
To make it harder.
Yeah, and I get that, but it's, I don't know, to me that's when you limit someone's ability based on control or shit like that.
And it's purposely still stiff in the jumping and all that crap.
Yeah. Mario's, the Legend of Zelda, that control is so grid-like, and it's easy to control. Gameplay's interesting. Yeah, Metroid actually, I think, has my favorite control, because with all the shit you can do, it's so fluid.
Yeah, it's pretty fluid and simple.
I never felt like I was being fucked over by a jump into a pit, whereas in Mario, with that little bit of extra momentum, I always fell just enough to fall over.
Yeah, the jumping in Metroid can be a little, not stiff, I want to say, but it definitely isn't as floaty as in later games.
Yeah,
like it's a lot more restricted.
The most annoying thing about Metroid jumping was like trying to get that higher jump and like having to press down the pressure sensitiveness.
The most annoying thing was something always flying into you mid jump.
Yeah, but all those games they were great. I'm not shocked about any of them. But it's just interesting to think like that truly is. If you were going to say what's the best the NES has to offer.
Don't scratch your balls next to me.
Hold on.
God damn it.
Gotta get the right one now. All right.
I was just at food shopping earlier today, just on a side note, and we're walking by an aisle. We were in Walmart, of course, and this guy just had no shame. Like, he was just like walking around, and he almost literally lifted his one leg and just started scratching right in front of us and then walked by.
I like it.
I'm glad my kid was sleeping during that.
I mean, you gotta kind of respect the.
Looked a little bit like me. Not a surprise.
Come on, buddy.
A little slovenly.
Jim, when are you gonna get a rag on the stick? So yeah, we want to hear what you guys think. Now that we are done the NES, I will say we are moving on to Jim's favorite.
Oh boy,
the Sega Genesis. Some would say we're saving the best for last. The Super NES.
Well, according to a goddamn bracket.
I mean, it's undeniable, Jim. Our fans, the only people's opinions who we care about, voted for it. So, Super NES is the best. You just have to accept it. So when Daddy says, "What's the best console?" you have to reply, "Super NES."
I'll say according to a flawed bracket. Maybe I'll say that.
Jim, it went head to head with that. So
don't shut your mouth.
I'm just saying.
Shut up. Shut your face.
So let us know what you think of those NES games. And since we won't tell you necessarily...
And what game do you think that we didn't do that really should have been up there?
Yeah, but keep in mind... That's the cat. Keep in mind that we may have already reviewed it, so...
Is your cat taking a shit right now?
Probably. He's scratching.
We'll find out soon enough.
But we want to see if you guys can throw out guesses as to which Sega Genesis games we're going to review. We'll say... There's a lot more to pull from that are not as obvious. So
yeah, see the weird thing, and we talked about it before we got into it. Like, the weird thing, like Super NES, obviously number one because it has like the top flight titles and the top flight titles of the top flight series.
Yeah.
Whereas the Genesis has like I guess a couple top flight titles, but it's got like a huge library of like really, really, really good games. I'd say in general it has more really good overall than maybe the Super NES has, where it has like a good number of like top flight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say Super NES has a lot more A+ games and Sega Genesis has like A- games.
Right.
I think that's probably a better... But I will say Sega Genesis, once again, we've reviewed a decent amount.
We already did Streets of Rage 2, so that's out.
Yeah. So take some guesses. I will say it wasn't as clear cut for us to get to the 4 spot for this.
Yeah, we had to just kind of...
We had to finally pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so last one. This is a topic you threw in there. And I know you have a story for it, so I'll let you start it off.
Yep, so this came up during a conversation in a group chat on Twitter. So it was, what's like the most embarrassing thing you've ever done while playing a game? So to give you an idea of what I mean, I'll start with my story where I think I was like probably 8. And... downstairs in my basement, my parents' house, playing Super Street Fighter 2. Only had the 3 button controllers, so the start button. That's because the Sega sucked.
Go ahead.
So the start button flipped you back and forth between punches and kicks. You could pause if you had a 6 button, but I didn't have one back then. So playing, and I'm doing good. I'm doing damn good for myself. And it's a game with unlimited continue, so I don't know why I felt the need to have to keep chugging along. Maybe I was in the zone. Bro, I was like, shit, I'm going to beat this. I don't think I... Sorry, camera cut out again. So, going back to where I was. So, playing Super Street Fighter 2. I'm in the zone. I'm like, going to beat it this time. I'm also thinking to myself, I have to pee. So, I made a decision that day. And the decision was I was going to beat Street Fighter, and I was going to take the risk on my penis. I lost both bets. So I'm sure if I played it long enough, I would have beaten Street Fighter. But things happen, and I kind of maybe sort of might have peed myself during that session. And as it's coming out, the pole's just getting bigger and bigger below me, and I'm like, no. So, of course, I had to stop playing, so went game over, which was kicking a dick in itself. And then, while my parents were upstairs, thank God they had already gotten the tile floor by then and got rid of the carpet. Because they had the carpet, I would have been screwed. But I had to run and try and find rags and paper towels and whatever I could to try and clean up that mess, and then sneak myself upstairs to change my pants and everything like that. It's like, where are you going, Jim? Oh, I'm gonna go take a shower. It's like, oh, 8-year-old Jim never took showers. Why is he doing that?
And for those of you who know Jim, it's not even a shocker. It's like you hear this. It's like, yeah, that would be a Jim story. So I can't say that. It's a funny.
I was goddamn dedicated.
It's a goddamn funny story, and I'll be honest, man, when he put this topic up, it's like I was trying to think, like, did he mean most embarrassing, like, in the game? And then he described that story to me prior in brief detail. But, yeah, I was trying to think for me, and it's like, man, how personal can I get with this story? But
how personal do you want to get?
I'm trying to think as abridged as I can get. But, so I guess there would be two. One... So I've obviously always been a huge gamer, but I think the one time it was like summer, and this was long ago. I was like playing, it was hot, and I'm sitting there in my boxer shorts, and I forget how I was sitting, but like my leg was up or something. And let's just say something spilled out.
All right.
And I think my girlfriend had been dropped off. And I knew she was coming over, but it was just like, whatever. And she like came in her room, and it was just there. So it was kind of like, and I didn't stop. I didn't pause it. I was like, I'm almost done. And it was just like, I remember the look on her face, like, what the shit? Like, seriously? Like, you couldn't even stop? But it was a similar situation to you, where I was
with less pee.
I was almost gonna beat a game I didn't, or like I was really far in the situation, and this had to either be a PS2 game. I can't remember the game, but it was one of those games where I couldn't easily save, or there was a checkpoint that was too far. So yeah, I just presented myself. And yeah, then afterwards I got an earful for sure. But yeah.
What, man can't sit in his own house with his own game, with his own dick out?
I'm just happy at that point, because I was still high school. I'm just happy it was my girlfriend and not like my mom or someone.
It would
like
have been
that.
way better if it was your mom or your girlfriend's mom.
I would have loved to embellish all
or your
of this.
girlfriend's dad.
Damn it. I would have loved to embellish this.
And then he went, Boo!
So I'll just leave that story as it. Maybe we get comfortable and we readjust this. I'll talk about other ones.
Oh, Jesus, I'm sure where those can go.
But yeah, so we would love if you guys on Twitter or YouTube, if you follow us, share some embarrassing stories. We know it's an odd thing to do, but
you don't have to get too personal. You can protect some names and shit like that. Obviously, it's the internet.
And obviously with Jim,
I'm shameless.
He just exposed about it. He pissed himself. But once again, it's like, if you know Jim, that's par for the course.
I haven't peed myself in a long time.
That shouldn't be a statement. That's the problem right there. Like, you said that, like, you look at me, like I'm
look at me, I'm 32.
I'm a year sober. Like, you can't just say I haven't peed myself.
I have my 10-year pee myself check.
Yeah. You can't just say that and be like that's normal. You son of a bitch. God. All right. So now that you finished this, what'd you think?
Tasty.
damn good, right?
I was expecting like a heavier beer.
No, that's why I said the best thing about brown ales is they can offer a lot of flavor and not be super heavy and not like be too boozy. Like if you have a stout and it has flavors, you know you're about to either be hit with a lot of alcohol or have one and be like, oh shit. Brown ales, they go down really smooth, and yeah, they kind of keep that like drying but salivating taste in your mouth while offering a lot of flavor. I mean,
there's also like not really that big of an aftertaste either.
No. The one thing that cuts through, I think, with the oatmeal raisin, you definitely taste the cookie, but the cinnamon they add in there, it kind of cuts through, especially when you first start this beer.
And it almost gives you like the flavor sensation of like a stout without having like the mouthfeel or like the heaviness of that either.
Yeah. So
that was a damn good beer. And like the first couple sips, I was like, ooh, tastes like oatmeal raisin cookie.
Yeah. Now, Jim, I mean, would you debate that I got the better beer this time?
Yeah, probably. You'll have the one that will leave more of an impression, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, so of these two, both good options. Obviously, if you're doing the Lagunitas, whatever you want to call it, that's for your hot summer days, and this will be like you're done dinner, you're in for the night, you're in the AC chilling, and you just want to drink this out. If you can save it for fall, might be a little better, but it's actually, because it's so easy to drink, it's not bad for being around a campfire either.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, obviously, we appreciate you watching, and if you are listening on iTunes, try to subscribe. Trying to get that number.
Leave a review.
Yeah. Trying to get those numbers jacked up. But either way, guys, thank you for your time. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.